Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Logan, the Metal and Beer Snob. I am coming at you tonight with a topic that I've been wanting to discuss for a while. It's specifically about those bands that are just a bit tougher to get into. Obviously, our favorite bands are the ones that we immediately click with, and their sound just makes sense. It's like a fish to water, kind of, when it comes to listening, but sometimes other favorite bands are ones you have to work at it just a little bit. And then there's those bands where you have to work at it a lot. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight. For as long as I've been a metal fan, there have been three bands specifically that have really challenged me as a listener and just as a fan of music and of following, a band's chronological journey through creating music. I've always admired these bands and looked up to them, but at the same time, I've never been able to call myself a fan of theirs. And I've always been a little jealous of people who really can take to these bands and get into the whole discography. And truthfully, it is a goal of mine to be able to have that experience with each of these three bands that I'm going to talk about. These are three bands that I wish I loved more and I'm trying to get more into. And of course, I'm talking about Blut Aus Nord, Sigh, and Voivod. Crack a beer and let's dive in. Of course, to pair with tonight's topic, I have a beer that's from a style that was also long in my crosshairs before I really got into it, and it's a Goza. Specifically, a lime cucumber Goza. Yes, a bit adventurous for a beer. I was really a late convert to sours and Gozas. Honestly, they have stayed one of my favorite styles of beer over the years just because they're so unique and you can do so much with the canvas that is just a Goza. And you can pair some unlikely flavor combinations like lime and cucumber. And this is probably one of the best iterations of a cucumber or even pickle style beer that I've had. It's very much like a cucumber dill infused water. If you've had any of those like water infusion kind of beverages, this one fits the bill, except it's beer, so thus it's better. It is light, refreshing, but still perfectly hits at that lime and cucumber flavor. While we're talking shop, what's playing in the background is, of course, another band I want to get a little bit more into, and one that has quite the daunting discography. This is Boris with Absolute Go. I kind of lucked into owning this one. This is a Goodwill find, and this is probably one of the crazier albums I own. It's literally an hour-long instrumental track of basically feedback. So it's a trip, man. It's good background music for recording a video, though. Boris have one of those discographies which is just constantly changing, but constantly interesting, but constantly a struggle to figure out, where to go, where to start, what to check out next. So one of those bands I want to like more and get more into, but they don't make it easy on you. So I've been like an extreme metal fan for, I'd say, about 15 years now. These three bands that I just mentioned, Blut Aus Nord, Sigh, and Voivod, have basically been on my radar for that whole time period. I've always somewhat enjoyed or been intrigued by their music since the beginning and since I first heard of each of these bands. But it's not been a easy go getting into them. There's a lot of commonality in between my experience with all three of these bands, which, to kind of explain why I'm shooting this video, I'm still actively trying to get into these acts. I mean, within the past 6 months even, I've made progress and headway on understanding and enjoying all three of these bands. And the fact that 15 years later, I'm still actively chipping away and really not making much progress on diving into a band's discography, I think is an interesting thing. And funny enough, I don't really hold it against these bands that I'm not like clicking or gelling with what they're trying to do with their music. In a sense, I almost think it's a plus, or it makes them a bit more endearing to me. You know, like I will always be trying and be on this journey. I mean, so far that's all I've known with these bands. I would love to feel like I've gotten there and understand their whole discography, but to a certain extent, I might just slowly be chipping away at, the discography of these three acts for the rest of my life. And I would kind of be okay with that. It's been a slow go of it, but still a rewarding and interesting one. And I wanted to kind of share my thoughts on where I'm at with these bands, get some recommendations of where to go in the future with them, and then kind of ask you guys, do you all have any bands where you're kind of in the similar situation where you've wanted to get into them, you think you would really enjoy being a big fan, but you just haven't had that moment where the whole band clicks or the whole discography clicks? I would be interested in hearing if other people have had similar experiences with any of these bands I'm about to talk about, or what your bands are that you've just been slowly trying to get into, and every now and then you try a different album, or you move the ball forward just a little bit, but it's slow going. Yeah, for me, this pairing of these three acts was very easy to come up with, very natural. As I said, I've been familiar with them all since practically the beginning of my extreme metal journey, and coincidentally, I own 3 albums from each of these bands, and all of them are relatively similar, where there's actually an album from each of these that I really love and really adore. Then there's one that I'm like, I definitely enjoy, and then another where I'm like, I'm still diving into and trying to figure it out and wrap my head around it. First, let me work kind of backwards chronologically. Blut Aus Nord. I first heard of these guys back in 2011 or 2012. I'm not sure specifically when, but it was definitely during their 777 series. And that actually ties into the first album I'm going to show, 777 Sex, first of the trilogy of these albums. And this one came out in early 2011. I don't think I heard this when this was released. I actually picked this up probably 2018 or 2019. This came a bit later and was indeed the first Blut Aus Nord album I purchased. This series is very off the wall, kind of Deathspell Omega-ish. It's kind of always reminded me of. It's like a blending of something melodic with something a bit more obtuse and abstract, with something that almost has an industrial level of beat to it. It's strange and bizarre music that only Blut Aus Nord can make. And I definitely did not get it when I first heard it. And then, of course, I ended up checking out Memoria Vetusta 3, Saturnian Poetry. And that one I liked, but it never really clicked with me back in the day. I do not own it, so I have not actually spun it in many years. And then from there, I kind of checked out a little bit until the Disharmonium series popped up. I almost feel like you could say it started with 2019's Hallucinogen, but the first one I heard was this one from 2022, Undreamable Abysses. And this is just so far up my alley. It's crazy. It's Lovecraftian, awesome artwork, awesome packaging and presentation. I'm a big Lovecraft fan for sure. Definitely his influence in metal is one of the coolest things. The fact that Blut Aus Nord decided to take this on was just a match made in heaven, because this perfectly encapsulates what I would think of like Lovecraftian music, and not just like music about a Lovecraftian entity, but music that really tries to perfectly represent an elder god or, unknowable entity like what's on the cover here. It feels alien, it feels hostile, it's uncomfortable, and just makes your skin crawl. It has such an eerie atmosphere. The way that it like snakes and crawls into your ears, it's quite an adventure and just unique journey. And the fact that this album was so unique and so perfectly captures what I think Lovecraft was writing about with some of his stories, it made it an immediate win for me. And I absolutely fell head over heels for Undreamable Abysses. It was one of my favorites for 2022 when it came out, and I still revisit it relatively often for how abstract and kind of off the wall it is. And then we have Disharmonium Nahab next in 2023, and this one actually did not do as much for me. I don't know why. Maybe it felt too close to the previous album, but I never clicked with this release. I've tried a couple times, and I once again chalked it up to Blut Aus Nord not being my band. But then, literally just last year, they released Ethereal Horizons, and I was immediately blown away. In fact, I want to say that listening to this for the first time was probably one of the most amazing first-time listening experiences I've had in years. When I first heard Shadows Breathe First, it was like time froze, and I immediately saw myself as a high schooler or college student finding one of my favorite bands, and just having that immediate feeling of electricity and like lightning striking, lightning in a bottle, just immediate connection through music. It was so alien and uncomfortable, like Undreamable Abysses, but at the same time beautiful and moving in an emotional way that Undreamable Abysses could not have done. And the whole album kind of follows that. It's a perfect album. I gave it a 10 out of 10 when it came out, and I mean, I'm still in like a honeymoon phase with it, I feel. So Ethereal Horizons is a perfect album, and it really makes me want Blut Aus Nord to be an absolute favorite band of mine. But then that's the thing. I have 3 albums by this band, and I've probably listened to 6 or 7 in total over the years. But this band has 16 albums to their name. I mean, Vince Vaughn is an amazingly prolific and varied musician, and the discography of Blut Aus Nord represents that. It's a bit overbearing to tackle. So just because I have an album from them that I feel is perfect doesn't mean I'm a Blut Aus Nord fan, I still know less than half of the discography and love basically 2 albums by them. I want to get better with Blut Aus Nord especially, and as far as the directions to go in, the safest bet would probably be a Hallucinogen. I've listened to that once or twice, and it always sounds cool. I've not really had the chance to fully dive in, but I'm thinking that would be the safest bet, because it does sound the closest to this album, and I've heard a lot of people who really liked it, thought that Ethereal Horizons was a worthy follow-up. It's also a bit more on the easy listening side, where Ethereal Horizons has that like shoegaze and more atmospheric black metal side to it. So does Hallucinogen. On the other side of things, I think it would be cool to just dive headfirst into one of his most well-known motifs of the discography, the Memoria Vetusta series, and either pick up kind of where I was starting with Memoria Vetusta 3, or get Dialogue with the Stars, or the first one, Fathers of the Icy Age, and check one of the most important, sections of the Blut Aus Nord discography out and see if maybe I would enjoy that and, kind of deviate from the safety of what I know, but find a section of the Blut Aus Nord discography, which for a lot of people, the Memoria Vetusta stuff is the best stuff from Blut Aus Nord. So I think if I can click with that, I'm one step closer to being a legit fan of this band. Of course, give me your opinions. What direction with Blut Aus Nord should I go into? Next up is Sigh. So hailing from Japan, Sigh are the masters of avant-garde black metal, where it's just everything in the kitchen sink thrown at you. And they've been doing this for a while with their albums. Like, they certainly started out as more traditional black metal on their earlier stuff, like Scorn Defeat, but I mean, as far as I know, as soon as their third album, Hail Horror Hail, they were really adventuring out into something new. For me, my journey with Sigh actually started with a single song from this album, Insomnophobia. Probably back in 2012 or 2013, I stumbled across the Transfiguration Fear. And let me tell you, that song is special. It is a wild, uplifting spaghetti western black metal track. The keys, the riffs, the vocals, they will stick with you for the rest of your life. I mean, as soon as I heard it, I was hooked, and I needed to listen to the rest of the album. And the rest of the album is appropriately weird as well. Believe me, it took me some time to wrap my head around it. For the longest while, I only listened to probably the first 3 songs, and I wouldn't venture out into the rest of the album because this is a weird, drawn-out release as well overall. Like, it feels doomy at parts, but at the same time, it's very psychedelic and drenched in, of course, the avant-garde-isms that only Sigh can do, like a blend of folk, a blend of psychedelia, and then every other kind of music that you want to throw at it. So, Insomnophobia is still my favorite Sigh album, for sure. And I think really the only one that's fully clicked with me. I've tried a couple others over the years, but this one is still one I enjoy back to front and has my favorite Sigh songs. So whenever I think of Sigh, it's always Insomnophobia and immediately Transfiguration Fear is a song that I must play. I did try other Sigh albums pretty soon after that with this one specifically, Imaginary Sonicscapes. I was lucky enough to stumble across this pressing from the End Records, relatively soon, and I mean, looking into this discography, this is one of the more well-liked albums by Sigh. I picked it up, and I gotta say, I've always liked it, but I've never loved it. There's something about it where it's not as energetic or as immediate as something like Insomnophobia. It does feel a bit more Pink Floyd-y at times. Like, he's not trying to get to anywhere fast. The pace of the album is very steady, and that's not something I was expecting from Sigh, to tell you the truth. I was kind of thinking that all of it would be relatively fast-paced. Imaginary Sonicscapes doesn't really have that feel to it, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around that at times. So this is not an album that I listen to that often. I mean, I've had this for well over 10 years, and yeah, it's a once-a-year kind of listen for me, which is surprising, and I want to like it more than I do. From there, I definitely checked out some more of the recent Sigh albums. Grave Word, which was, I thought, interesting, but then at the same time I didn't really click with it either. Recently I checked out Shiki from 2022, and that one's pretty good, actually. That one, I've been clicking with it the couple times that I've spun it. Over the past couple years, I recently picked up Hangman's Hymn. This is their 2007 album, so it was 2 albums before Insomnophobia. And this is another weird one, man. Like, it has the energy back from Imaginary Sonicscapes, but the songwriting is even more bizarre than Insomnophobia, I feel like. And another one, once again, where I don't feel like I've clicked with it. I try it probably once a year, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So, Sigh, I guess I'm more lukewarm on than even Blut Aus Nord, which is a bummer, because I think their sound is super cool, and I love just their approach to variety and being avant-garde while still being metal at their core. Like, I don't feel like they've ever left being a metal band. You know, they weren't an Ulver or even like a KO Dot where they kind of left behind what being a metal band is, and they still have an appreciation for fast, heavy, somewhat brutal and chaotic music, and I always appreciate that about Sigh. So where do I get into them from here? My initial thoughts were either the straightforward one of just, I should buy Shiki. As I said, that one is the most recent album, and I've had good experiences with it already. Plus, it just feels like a good representation of their discography as a whole. But my other thought was I should go back and dive right into the beginning, get their black metal stuff, Scorn Defeat. I've heard this album once before. I remember enjoying it, but I couldn't tell you much more about it besides it was a very riff-forward kind of black metal. Maybe going back to the beginning and seeing where Sigh started out could be a good way to appreciate their sound a bit more throughout their discography. I mean, because if I crack the Sigh sound, this discography is like 12 albums long, and as far as I know, most of them are considered good to great to amazing masterpiece level album. I think Sigh would take a bit more work than like Blut Aus Nord, but I'm curious to do it. Let me know your thoughts of what album should I try from Sigh. And then finally, the third band where I've had the longest and bumpiest relationship with is Voivod. I mean, this just makes perfect sense. Everyone knows Voivod is a hit or miss band for people. You either love them, you hate them, or you just don't get it. To a certain extent, I've always fallen into the just don't get it camp. I've known about Voivod for the longest of all three of these bands, and have been trying with Voivod for basically as long as I've known about them. I don't know the exact year, but I think it was like 2011 or 2012. I picked up a copy of Roar in the used bin for, $5 or $6. That album was too much for me at the time. I mean, honestly, it is still too much for me today. Back then, I didn't know what to do with it. It was so unpolished and gritty, and I was expecting thrash, but it didn't sound like thrash. I was looking for maybe something heavy metal-ish. Didn't sound like that. I didn't know what to do with Roar. So, unfortunately, I ended up selling it, and I now have a policy of never sell your stuff. A bit of advice, but also my personal take. And Roar is one of those reasons. Like, I'm pretty sure it was a original Noise pressing CD. I regret selling it because I would have enjoyed having it in the collection to revisit and have these experiences with it over the years. And who knows what my relationship with this band would have been like if I had kept Roar and maybe given it more chances to click. And I think the fact that I basically tried it the first time and sold it, that started my relationship with Voivod off on a rough footing. I guess I was still optimistic because pretty soon after that, Voivod made their comeback with Target Earth in 2013. And look at that. This is the only record I'm going to show tonight. I actually do not love this album. I think I like it. I think I like it enough to have it on record somehow. I picked this up very soon after it came out, just kind of on a whim. And not only do I have the record, but over the years I actually ended up finding it on CD too. So there we go. I kind of like, but kind of still don't get Target Earth, yet I own it on record and CD. To me, this album feels off-putting. It's off-kilter. The songs, they are songs and you can follow them, but where they're coming from feels so alien and bizarre to me. I just don't click with them in the same way I would other kind of songs. Like, I've heard this album many times over the years, but I can't really recall too many of these tracks. And that's somewhat problematic to me, you know? So this is kind of my first official attempt at getting into Voivod, I guess, because I bought it and I've held on and I'm still trying. But then a little slice of hope happened with one of their follow-up albums, 2022's Synchro Anarchy. I don't know what it is, but this album actually clicked with me. I am a big fan of this release. Like, it's not a perfect album by any means, and I still find it kind of jarring at times. So it's not an everyday listen. The songs actually work for me. I like a lot of these tracks. Planet Eaters is oddly catchy, oddly disconcerting at the same time, but like the fact that it clicks with me means I enjoy the disconcerting nature. Mind Clock is cool. Quest for Nothing track 8 is actually my favorite track on the album. That one has the most aggressive like thrash push. Kind of just an iconic chorus, and yeah, very, very memorable, that track. This album overall, though, I enjoyed the whole thing, and yeah, I pull this often enough to say I am a legit fan of Synchro Anarchy. But from there, man, I've tried many different Voivod albums over the years. I've gone back to Roar. I've tried Dimension Hatros a couple times. That is Marty Worm from Heavy Metallurgy. That's his favorite album, and yeah, I trust that guy's taste. I've not gotten into Dimension Hatros, and I've not clicked with The Outer Limits. But one album that's giving me hope is Nothing Face. I definitely tried this one multiple times over streaming throughout the years, kind of never really getting it. But all of a sudden, within the past, 6 months, I want to say, it started to click, big time. I think I started to realize that it sounds a lot more like the alternative rock and metal scene of the 90s. I'm thinking like Primus or Helmet or like Faith No More or Mr. Bungle. Just weird stuff. The off-the-wall kind of 90s alternative stuff that still hooks me to this day. And I kind of hear that in this Nothing Face album. And so much so that I ended up picking it up recently via Whatnot. Check that app out if you can. I am just continuing to enjoy it. This is on a pretty consistent rotation around these parts. It's either a week to every other week that I end up spinning Nothing Face, which is very cool because I've never had this kind of experience with a Voivod album, maybe outside of Synchro Anarchy. This album, I think, is helping Voivod click with me. The Unknown Knows is a great opening song. Astronomy Domine is a superb cover. So eerie, but yeah, alien, perfect for Voivod. My favorite track is actually Missing Sequences. That one has this catchy hook, but also it's still jarring, but it works. And the thing is, I can follow these songs individually. They make sense, and I want to return to them. Like the second half, I don't know if I enjoy quite as much as the first half, but Into My Hypercube is a great track, and Sub Effect, of course, is a solid closer. Yeah, I mean, Nothing Face. This could end up being like a 9 out of 10 album for me. I think I'm still wrapping my head around some of the tracks, but I'm impressed. And I honestly kind of thought I was a lost cause with Voivod in this era, but it's really cool and fun to be able to realize I can grow as a musical listener and appreciate things that I didn't used to enjoy. But that begs the question, where do I go from here? So with Voivod, there's a couple different routes, honestly. For me, the easiest one, I think, would be sticking with this Nothing Face lane and probably going to one of the following albums. Because I've heard that they continue to go down more of a 90s sound and vibe, and as soon as you wrap your head around that, those albums are enjoyable. I'm talking about Angel Rat and Outer Limits specifically. And I think the Outer Limits would probably be my first choice for album to check out, because I've heard it before, and I know good at face value, it was solid enough. But I also know a lot of people who really value that album and view it as either their best or very high in the discography. So the Outer Limits, I think, seems like the safest bet. I could just go back and try one of the classic thrash or even earlier albums and pick up like Dimension Hatros or Killing Technology, or even try Roar again, but I'm not sure. Because I feel like I've already given that enough of a chance. Alternatively, I could go back to the more recent stuff and check out the album before Synchro Anarchy, The Wake, because I have been told by many people that that is the best post-2000s Voivod album. I think this discography especially is where I would take the most recommendations, because there are so many different albums here to check out, and I think there's some wrong choices that I could make, But I think there's a couple right ones too. So I'd be curious for you Voivod fans. Tell me, what would you recommend as another Voivod album to check out? But yeah, that's 3 bands that I am still trying to get into as a metalhead, even after a decade and a half. So thanks for watching. I kind of enjoyed this video. I'm going to film a follow-up after, enough time has passed, and I'm going to basically use this video as a means to select the next album for each of these bands. And then I'll probably follow up with a little review of, my thoughts and where I've gone with these acts, because I don't know. I'm enjoying talking about this personal relationship that I have with these bands and how it's not an easy one, and it's a complicated one, and I think it will continue to be complicated as I try to move forward with potentially being a fan of Blut Aus Nord, Sigh, and Voivod. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm curious, do you have any bands which you want to get more into and you've just had a tough time being a fan of? Let me know. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for giving up your time. Cheers. Drink good beer. Listen to good metal.